After that really enthralling session from Swamini, we are going to be meeting a husband and wife duo who are going to talk to us about Bharatiya contribution to science. Dr. Hema Hari and Dr. D.K. Hari are a husband and wife duo and founder of Bharat Gyan, a forerunner in Indian civilization knowledge studies. They started Bharat Gyan after being professionals in the management and IT space for nearly 20 years, and during their work, they traveled around the world and got a lot of exposure to international cultures, etc. Bharat Gyan, apart from doing deep study on the scientific and industrial aspects of the Bharatiya civilization, also highlights the contributions made by the Indian civilization to the world across millennia. Both Hari and Hema have more than 500 hours of multimedia content to their name on the Indian civilization, have published more than 100 books as part of the autobiography of India collection, 5 documentary films, 500 short films, and 500 blog stories. They are also visiting faculty for Indian civilization studies at universities in India and overseas. And this is a truncated version of their resume that I have just read out. It's much larger, but in the paucity of time, I had to I had to put it down. And I am a little while ago, I picked up the phone on Dr. Hari and I said, "Listen, doc, if I just read out this as your profile, you sound like Superman, and Hema Hari sounds like Wonder Woman." And 100 marks to Dr. Hari. His immediate response was, "I'm definitely not Superman, but Hema Hari is Wonder Woman." So I almost felt like saying, "Dr. Hari, aap jeet gaye pure 100 crore rupaye," when he said that. Doctor, correct answer. And he then went on to add that to justify his statement, he said, "Dr. Hema is a direct student of D.K. Pattamal and is a very good exponent of Carnatic music." So thank you so much. And last bit, all about Indian civilization and contribution to science. So I called up and I asked them saying, how do I bring it to life? For example, Indian contribution to science, the most common one is zero. India contributed zero to the world. So I said, knowing, that's the limited knowledge I have and how pedantic I can get. So I said, is zero, can I bring it to life? And what Hema said was quite amazing. She said, no. And I love this line. She said, India has brought from zero to infinity to the world, and we would like to, therefore, one of the reasons why we are evangelizing this whole studies, Indian civilization studies, is we want to make the world and India aware that we have given from zero to infinity to the world. Dr. D.K. Hari, Dr. Hema Hari, welcome.
Namaskaram Swamiji and Namaskaram Swamini.
Namaste.
Namaste. And thank you, Mr. Suresh Balakrishna, for this very nice introduction and the phone call about an hour ago. And it's a very interesting subject, India's contribution to the world of science. It's a very vast subject. I don't know how much we'll be able to cover in the next hour or so given to us, but we'll try to bring in quite a few nice facets for us all to relish. The key word here is to relish this knowledge. And once we relish, we'll start getting to the other layers as well. So let's, without taking much time, let's straight away get to the point of our civilizational contributions to the world of science. It's a very important aspect. We'll take the first few points. Let's look at the name itself, our country's name, Bharat. And we call it Bharatiya contribution.
The thing is, fundamentally, when we say Bharatiya contributions to science, there are a couple of things that should strike us from here. One is, what is this Bharat? Why it has a name Bharat? What does it mean? What does it stand for? To have contributed to science. And secondly, have there been contributions to science from this land? How can we fathom or understand and verify that particular set of contributions? Then what are the contributions? So these are the order in which our mind will travel. I mean, actually, if you just read these 4 words, and mind, as we know, travels very fast. So we just read it like that. And to have contributed, actually, you should have been a role model first. You should have inspired people. Then you should have been able to create that awakening by giving a new perspective. When you have an awakening, when you have a new perspective. So that new perspective should have been given. Then you should have been able to create and start that churn.
Manthan.
And for that churn to happen, you should have seeded new ideas, concepts, and then which would have caused the buzz and then a lot of activity happening around it. And out of all that churn comes all those froth and the bubbles. And when this is happening, we should also be having the energy enough to sustain all this froth and the bubble. So are we doing all this to be called contributors to the world of science? So that is what we will be seeing. And to start with, we'll actually look at this name Bharat itself and how it's been an inspiration. What have people told about this? So this is something that we will look at now. And to get there, yeah. So if you really look at the name Bharat, it comes from the root. I think by now most people would be familiar with this meaning of the word Bharat itself. India, which is Bharat, where the word Bharat comes from the root Bha, which is light, knowledge, enlightenment.
Bhaskara, Bhanumati.
And Ratha, meaning, then the way to understand Ratha is from an example, where you have Rati, the consort of Manmada or Kamadeva, and Rati is for delight, that who brings delight. To Kamadeva or Manmada, who is the divinity for desires. To desires and delight, they go hand in hand. Look at the beauty with which we have paired our divinities itself and the names we have given them. So Rati means to relish. Rata is one who is a connoisseur, who relishes. So Bharata, by virtue of the name it has given itself, is a land where people are immersed in knowledge, they relish knowledge. Now, is it enough if we say that we are a land of knowledge and we have relished knowledge?
See, that is a name we are given ourselves. But what do our neighbors look at us as is what we have to see. The equally ancient neighboring civilization is the Chinese civilization. They have had a 5-perspective view of the world that they knew then. This is a couple of millennia ago. Let's see the Chinese perspective. So
the Chinese, they called themselves, their civilization, as king of humans, because they said the people are very obedient to authority, which stands even true today. Then they called the Turks as king of lions because of ferocity and courage. Then they said the Persians, they are the king of kings because they have this fertile land between Euphrates and Tigris, and they've been generating the wealth. Then they called Rome as king of men because they've got a robust physique and they're very beautiful. Look at what they called Indians, king of wisdom. So the definition, the way they look at it as the place which is the first nation to cultivate science, where branches of knowledge have flourished.
The beauty of it. That's how they look at it. So it is not we calling ourselves as Bharata, a land of connoisseurs of knowledge, but our neighboring civilization with whom we have had continuous connect in every generation for many millennia have looked at us as a land of science, a land of wisdom. So that itself brings out the contribution of our civilization to the field of science. And the other point is when we say we are land Bharat, which I explained to you just now. We call ourselves as what? The people who are knowledge oriented, people who are connoisseurs of of knowledge, of science, can we for a moment think of any other land in this world, any other country in this world, any other civilization in this world, any other group of people in this world who call themselves as people of knowledge, people who relish knowledge, people who have contributed to knowledge, people who seek knowledge, people who dwell in knowledge? That is only us, Bharatiya, in this world. So look at the beauty of the word Bharat, Bharatiya, people who relish knowledge. Amazing, isn't it? Obviously, science, jnana, vijnana, both flow from the idea of knowledge. So that's obviously there. So look at that. That is the uniqueness. And it places at the right at the top. One, we call ourselves to a land to the east, that is China, because China itself means land to the east. So they call us so. Now let's look at the lands to the west, how they call us in similar contemporaneous periods. Let's look at this is a quote from a person, Basra. Basra is at the Gulf, a very famous port of those days near Baghdad. And that's why the pearls of Basra are famous. Even now, the paints that you use in the different companies, paints that use, they say Basra pearl is a color. So Basra was so famous those days. Look at what this scholar, science scholar of Basra writes about India. This is about 1200, 1300 years ago.
So he says, Al-Jahiz, he says, as to the Indians, we find them at the first place in astronomy, mathematics. They notably possess the Indian numerals and medicine. As for the latter, they are the ones to own its secrets, and owing to it, they practice wonderful treatments. They are able to cut statues, carve painted figures. They have the game of chess, which is the noblest game and demands high sense of organization and intelligence. So he is actually talking about so many aspects. And the first thing that he lists is the science subjects, the astronomy, the maths, the numerals, the medicine. And then he moves on to a lot of arts and so on and so forth, and then the stories. So it is in India that astronomical calculations originated and later were taken by other nations. Then last line not to miss, when Adam came down from paradise, he went to their country. So he's...
Look at that. So Adam deems it appropriate to first come to Bharat, because this is the land of knowledge, land of sciences, all the sciences. This is said by Al-Jahiz in Basra, the then big city of the what do you call as West Asia today. From that perspective, there's one more person. Let's look at next person.
I also want to draw your attention to this line. See, they have a script which can represent the sound of all the languages as well as various numerals. So this is something very key, because we normally tend to think of language, alphabets, all of that in the realm of just literature and languages. We never look at a pause and think that there is a science behind languages, science behind, while, I mean, there is science in the way we make sounds, but there is a far bigger science in how we have been able to fathom from where these sounds are coming, how they come, how they can be represented, so that the sounds are not lost. Because once the moment you make a sound, it's lost. It just goes, it gets dissipated into the air. But how do you preserve that sound so that somebody else knows this is the sound you made and this is what you said?
You can later see from one of our films in our among the 500 films that we said, why should the alphabet sequence be so? Have you ever wondered why should B come after A? Why should C come after B? Or why should X come after L? Or why can't we say LMN, Z, Q, A, B, L, D, M? What is the sequence of the alphabets you have in West? You have no reason for it. Whereas the alphabetic form in India has a meaning to it, has a scientific meaning to it. Like that, of course, that's a separate film. We're not showing it today. You can watch it later because we show you some other films today. Let's go to the next man.
Okay, so these are people who keep re-emphasizing the same thing. You will find that.
I'll just go to Said al-Andalusi. Any idea where Andalusi is? There's actually an airline today called Air Andalusia. Some of you may be aware. Andalusia is in Spain. It's a portion of Spain. Okay, so when Spain was Moorish about 1,000 years back, there was this scholar, a scholar of science. See, and he writes about this. Tabakat ul Umam. In that, he writes very clearly. See what he says about India. And of course, science is called ulum for them then.
See, and he says it's a powerful nation having a large population, a rich kingdom, known for the wisdom of its people. And he says that people referred. So now he's talking about the Chinese having referred to India as the king of wisdom. And he's re-emphasizing, yes, it is true because the Indians have a careful treatment of ulum, which is science, and their advancement in all the branches of knowledge. So you can see that there is continuous acceptance of the fact that this is a land of knowledge. This is a land that has cultivated science. It has given the science to rest of the world, and they have accepted, because the earlier one we saw where he says, we have taken all this and then taken it through the world.
Spread it, shared it to the world. See, look at the point. We call ourselves land of knowledge, Bharata. The Chinese called us so from the east. From Basra, we saw they called us so. That's from the Persian Gulf. They called us so. Then this is from Spain, Andalusia. So we talk about 4 different geographical regions across millennia, looking at our civilization as a land of knowledge and science. Let's go to the next slide.
And not to miss again the last line, they are of sublime pensiveness, universal apologue, and useful and rare inventions. So all of this, they also talk about the sublimity in our thought. So this aspect, therefore, at least the first doubt, about what is Bharatiya and why Bharatiya and its association with science should have kind of got settled those doubts. But now another interesting aspect that we want to actually tell you about, what was our view of science? That's very interesting. I'll just show you that. See, this is Varaha Mihira. And in his Brihat Samhita, he says, science is a body of knowledge that has grown, is growing, and will grow. And it progressively affects man's life. So here, there is a very clear distinction that you can see where we had understood science as a discipline of knowledge. But we also knew that, so fundamentally what it's coming down to is, what is this world is, which is the truth, which is the reality. So that is there. That doesn't work as per science. Science is only our growing understanding of this reality. So when we talk about reality, we call it philosophy, we call it darshana in Indian languages. And we think today that science is different from this philosophy or darshana. But all of this, which is actually trying to understand the reality, is what is science. So very clearly you can understand from Varaha Mihira. So it has grown already. So there is already existing
body of
knowledge of this reality. It is continuing to grow with time as our minds mature, and it will continue to grow even further in future. So this is how we have defined science, and very clearly we have also called it a philosophy. And the point is, today, unfortunately, it is deeply embedded in the mind of the educated people that science is something that has come from Europe and the West, and that the Arab countries, everybody, they're all dismissed as alchemists. There is no reference to India and China. But now, slowly, it is becoming clearer that we have been a civilization from Vedic times who have been contributing a lot to the field of science. And some of the very clear evidences come from what we shall see as people who have been influenced by us during the period of Renaissance.
In Europe, over the last couple of centuries, we just made a list of it. It's one of our books. We'll show you some of the key scholars who helped Renaissance happen in the world. We'll see them.
Just one. We have, by the way, listed it in our book, Brand Bharat, Leads from India. We're just picking it up from there for you.
Look at the names of all these great scholars, and they all are the scholars who kickstarted the Renaissance movement, made the Renaissance movement of Europe happen. But all of them say that they got their spark, their idea from Indian thought. Who are they? She list out some of them now.
So if you start all the way from Immanuel Kant, and he was influenced by the Gita, and then you have Wilhelm von Humboldt. You have a whole university, the Humboldt University of Germany, and
one of the big universities of Germany, which gave science to Europe. So it's named after him. So he himself, personally.
But see, you will see the beauty here. Look at all these people who we call as people who have triggered scientific thought. They all start off with Indian literature. Many of them, look at it, they go to Bhagavad Gita. The philosophy is what triggers them into thinking scientifically. And all of this, if you see, is soon after the Renaissance, when the mind in Europe, when the Dark Ages have settled, I mean, when they have been wiped away, and thought, freedom of thought and expression is beginning. Yes. So here we have Schlegel, and here he is a philosopher as well. And then you have Goethe, who traces it again to Sanskrit. And then Schopenhauer, again a philosopher. Then Franz Bopp again. Now, while all these people have been influenced by Sanskrit, it is their influence by collective influence by Indian literature and the Indian language and the science in the Indian language that the mind starts thinking more scientifically as well. You have Mark Twain, then finally it comes down to Albert Einstein, and then Schrodinger. So you can see how it's progressively moving from the realm of literature into the ideas of science, scientific theory. And then of course T.S. Eliot, because he also goes on later to quote about Shanti and all that. And the beauty is, you will find today we are not able to see this very directly, but in science, especially in chemistry, one of the important discoveries.
Think for a moment, what is the basis of modern chemistry that all of you study in school, teach in colleges, discuss in chemistry? What is the fundamental basis of modern chemistry? The periodic table of Mendeleev, or what you call as the Mendeleev's table, Dmitry Mendeleev's table. How did Dmitry Mendeleev come up with that periodic table? We have written about this extensively in our book. It's an element of wonder. We also made a film on it. It's available for you also later to watch. But the point is, he got this idea, has written about it. This is the original style in which he came up with, and later how it came to be, now that we know of it. But for him to come up with this pattern came about from him listening to our Shiva Sutra. So the pattern and that's what he says very clearly. So it's there in our...
So the Indian thought in our languages, we have very clearly had a science for how sounds come, how they are produced, how they are therefore to be organized as letters, and the aksharas, and the pattern in which they are organized. And all of this, if you go back, they are traced. I mean, Panini has played a key role in defining the rules with which these sounds can be combined. And So we have his work called Ashtadhyayi, and we also have the Shiva Sutra, which is also fundamentally about these sounds and the order and the patterns of sounds. And the very interesting thing, if you will notice, is that Mendeleev had spent a lot of time visiting Baku, the Ateshga in Baku.
Which is Ateshka is a fire temple where the Shiva Sutris were living there. The people of Shiva Sutra, look at see, this is the place where he came to visit, interact with them, and listen to Shiva Sutra. This is the place in Baku by the Caspian Sea, Kashyapa Sagar, from where he got the idea. And we visited the spot. This is where Mendeleev lived, and he got the ideas from them, and then he developed it. And when
he visits first in 1862. And subsequently, of course, he visited it in a different connection because he was looking at petroleum and so on, and he was there, but he visited it a number of times. And also, he had a friend who was a Sanskrit professor. Now, this is listed in the Baku temple itself. The number of times he has visited is all listed and available in the Baku temple scrolls there.
And look at this, how he names each of the elements that when he comes up with them, or there's a space, he calls it Eka, Dvi, Tri. Very clearly, Sanskrit names is what he gives. So these are the clinching evidences that he gives, embeds it in the original table. Now, having said this, let's go back to the point that, see, so all of chemistry, say contribution of Bharatiya science to chemistry is humongous.
So it's been a spark. I mean, obviously, all of this is not to take away the credit from Mendeleev at all in the organization of the table, but an inspiration that things in nature have a pattern. There is an order. There is a rita. Rita, the idea of people normally say, if you look at modern science, they will say that the universe is chaos. But Indian thought has always said that there is order in the universe, there is pattern, there is a dharma, there is a rita, there is a rhythm. The word rhythm comes from rita. So the
English word rhythm comes from the Indian word rita. That's why in Taittiriya Upanishad, Shikshavali, we have Ritam Vadishyami, Satyam Vadishyami. Look at this. The idea of Rita, Ritu, Ritam emanates from there. Having said this, we will quickly go to, because of the paucity of time, we have to rush through many points and not have the space to elaborate. We'll go to the other key point which our host told us this morning to ask us specifically about the idea of zero.
So
all of us speak about India gave zero. And we say two things. One, we say India gave zero. Then we say Aryabhatta invented zero. Two things. Beyond that, you ask anybody, nobody knows. That's the real sad state. First point, yes, India gave zero. But did Aryabhatta give the zero? No. That's a myth. Aryabhatta did not invent zero. Aryabhatta also used zero. The idea of zero is very clearly Indian, and we'll have to see when and where. See, if you say India gave zero, it's fine. Many people have said it. When and where did you give the zero from? That is what we'll have to see. There's a story for zero. We'll just get to that for 2 minutes. Quickly, because compressing a whole body of knowledge in 50 minutes is difficult. So look at this. This is a famous statement by Einstein. He says, we owe a lot to the Indians who taught us how to count, without which no worthwhile scientific discovery could have been made. That's the statement of Einstein. That's one. Next, let's look at this. Air Basham, an Australian who wrote a book called Wonder That Was India, he writes, the debt of Western world to India in the field of mathematics cannot be overestimated. Most of the great discoveries and inventions of which Europe is so proud of would have been impossible without the developed system of mathematics in India. And this in turn would not have been possible, would have been impossible if Europe had been shackled by the unwieldy Roman numerals. The unknown man who discovered the new system was, for the world's point of view, after Buddha, the most important son of India. Look at this very powerful statement. Can you just try to count, subtract, multiply, root, or do square root of with maths with Roman numerals? Think, can you add, subtract, multiply, divide with Roman numerals? Is it possible? In modern science, not possible at all. So we have to understand that the concept that we gave of numerals was what it says is it missed all the so-called great minds of Europe for a millennia and more. So now let's look at for the next 5 minutes the story of zero, because this is what Suresh asked us. So when zero was introduced in Europe, they asked, what is this crazy number? A crazy digit. It is nothing. If you put as 03, that 0 is nothing. If you put as 300, then it becomes all the value. So it was incomprehensible, but very powerful. What do you do with the 0? And there's a French writer who says, this 0 is a sign that creates confusion and difficulties. Because one side you put it, it's got no value. One side you put it, it's got all the value. What do you do with it? So,
and this is in the 15th century.
As recently as 400 years ago, 500 years ago, not very far away, as recently. And there was enormous resistance to this Indian numeral. So what did they do? Because of resistance, they could understand that they called it the work of the devil. Simple. And others just ridiculed it. This recently as 400, 500 years ago, they just called it the work of the devil. And anybody who could understand the 0 became a great scholar. Anybody who could speak about 0 was considered a great scholar. So that was the huge contribution that kicked off science in Europe. Now the point I'm coming to, so look at this. It is this painting of Arithmetic, the famous painting. Look at this, Arithmetic, Arithmetic painting, where the warm south dress, open dress, the cold north, which is the abacus board and the Indian numerals. It's where the Indian numerals painting, they have a game as to who is better. And here is Lady Arithmetic standing as a judge for this. And it is in this that you see, this is the original painting. We just cleaned it up a little bit. So this is a painting there. And it is in this, in the year VDMIE, that is 1543, the acceptance of Indian numerals happened, including 0 in Europe. In Europe. So that was the kickoff point from which Indian numerals got accepted. So 0 was also accepted. So that is the story of 0. And if you look at the 0 idea, it confounded them for many years because they had 1 to 9. But why 0? They could not understand it. And what is the process of it? They couldn't see. Because, mind you, their calendar did not have 0 year. It had -1 year, it had +1 year. It did not have 0 year because they did not know 0 then. The Gregorian calendar does not have a year called 0. And see, look at how 0 traveled. In Sanskrit, it's called Shunya. In Arabic, it became Sifr. Latin, Sifra, Zephram. Cipher in French, Zevro, 0, Zypher. Finally, in 16th century, it becomes 0. So the word, the concept, all this travels land to land, tongue to tongue, century to century, giving the idea of 0 to the world. Look at the beauty of it, how it starts with the concept of Shunya and becomes 0. Today, if you look at it, you'll not be able to see the connect between the idea of Shunya to 0. But when you see this, you'll be able to see a connect. Certainly, we have a short film on it. You want to play it? We'll go ahead. Okay, there's a short film. Please watch later. It's there in our YouTube channel. Those who want to watch, please watch it. And look at this. The Chinese, Babylonia, none of them use 0 till about 1,000 years back. It appears for the first time. Even there, they only leave a gap. They don't have a number. Now I'm going to ask you a point. We all know that this is the shape of 0. Why did Indians come up with this shape of 0? Why can't you call it a L, Q, M, P, V, X? X is very popular digit. Now, why can't we call 0 as X? Why did we give the shape, this shape,
circular dot,
to the shape of 0? That is a question of science. That is a question of thought. That's a thought that goes beyond this world. That is a thought that we have captured and brought and put it in our numerals. Have we ever paused to think, why is 0 shaped thus? Why can't we call it L shape? Because what is it saying? All numbers originate from 0 is what our thought is. For them, they had only 1 to 9. Europe did not have 0. We had 0. And we also said all numbers originate from 0. So when you say that all originates from this, where else do we have this idea of all originating from this? In our knowledge system of the Bharatiya Parampara system, where else do you have this? This from the idea of Hiranyagarbha. In the Brahmand Visfotak, the Big Bang, you have the idea of a Hiranyagarbha, pulsating Hiranyagarbha, from which everything emanates. What's the shape of that? The same shape of Shunya, 0, because nothing else exists but that. So that is the shape. Look at the shape we gave for 0. So we took the shape in the mathematics, in arithmetic, from this, because it is from this everything emanates. So all of maths emanates from this. So we gave this the shape 0. It's there again, there's a film there for this. Please watch the film later. Now, having said this, and we've got all other people who speak about 0. They've got a lot. It's written in a book extensively. Read that later. Now, having said this, let's go to the next point that was asked of us to speak on. Other point is what? The idea of infinity. India contributed many things. It's all there. We deal with it when we deal on maths extensively, but we contributed 0, the idea of the dot, decimal, which is called dashamlag, and then idea of infinity. So I told you now the shape of 0, why we got the shape 0 here. How we got this? How did we get the shape of infinity? Yeah.
We'll just play a small film for you for this.
Why did we get the shape? How did the shape infinity come to West? We can explain it, but Hema deems it appropriate to play it as a short film that we have. The idea of infinity.
In India, a coiled snake, Ananta, on which Lord Vishnu rests, represents infinity. The drawing of Ananta was widely used in sculptures, paintings, poetry, literature, handicrafts and textiles, motifs all over in medieval India. India was regularly exporting textile piece goods called Indian with the Ananta motifs to Arabia in 1415 and 1600, which also travelled to Europe. Coming across this drawing of the textile motifs in 1655, John Wallis, the British mathematician, most probably derived the present mathematical symbol for infinity from these drawings of the coiled snake Ananta, which represented endlessness and infinity. Professor Fritz Stahl, Professor Emeritus Philosophy and South and Southeast Asian Studies, University of California, Berkeley, USA, stated ancient India had recognized infinity, whereas other civilizations frowned upon it. Famous German physicist Albert Einstein had said, "We owe a lot to the Indians who taught us how to count, without which no worthwhile scientific discovery could have been made." In the words of the noted historian A.L. Basham, in his book, The Wonder That Was India, the debt of Western world to India in the field of mathematics cannot be overestimated. Most of the great discoveries and inventions that Europe is so proud of.
You already explained that. So the idea, look at the idea how 0 comes about.
And nothing is sane in Indian thought. Prior to the creation of the universe, the 5 primordial elements were inside the Hiranyagarbha, a bindu, just a dot, the mark of 0. The moment the Big Bang, Brahmanda Visfotak, took place, the cosmic egg blasted open and all the elements spewed out instantaneously from nothing to measurable infinity. Relating to the state of the universe before and after creation, the Indian mind, from one abstract concept of 0, Shunya, reached out to the abstract on the other end of the spectrum, which is the concept of Ananta, infinity, that which is beyond measure, without any end. Back in India, there was a definition for infinity, which was recited and practiced in everyday Homa conducted right from Vedic days. This verse is found in Satpataha Brahmana and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. The shloka speaks of the understanding of the concept of infinity in India. Infinity infinity derives from infinity. If one takes away infinity from infinity, only infinity remains. A concept that the West grasped and understood only thousands of years later. The home of knowledge, wisdom, and philosophy for thousands.
So look at the idea here that from one end of the spectrum we gave 0 with a symbol 2 and the naming. And the other end of the spectrum we gave infinity, which etymologically, phonetically comes from our root word ananta. Ananta sign, ananta, infinite. And the symbol 2. So both. So, and many 1,000 aspects in between Shunya to Ananta, we have also given.
So here actually, you may wonder how old could this idea of infinity have been in Indian thought? And you will find words in our Indian languages which go back, they are there, and these aspects are being dealt with in very old works of Upanishad and darshanas and all that. You will find that measure itself, they have looked at it as three. So one that is a bounded, measurable thing. Anything that is measurable is bounded. You can measure it. Okay. So to measure is called parimana. So madhya parimana for that which is bounded and measurable. And on two extremes, they have had parimanas which are immeasurable. The anuparimana, which is the minutest, infinitesimally small, immeasurable quantity, to the vibhu parimana, which is infinitely large and therefore immeasurable. So the idea was there that there is something, infinity extends to both ends of the spectrum, and you have some which is infinitesimally small and that which is infinitesimally large. And the infinitesimally small tends to your shunya and this tends to your ananta.
Look at the beauty of it, the spectrum.
And based on this, so beautifully, look at it, we have named divinities called aprameya, which means immeasurable.
Prameya, Aprameya. There's actually a beautiful temple for Aprameya Swami between
Bengaluru and Mysuru.
Mysuru in a place called Channapatna. So next time any of you are driving by, please stop by the temple. It's on the left-hand side when you go from Bengaluru. So Channapatna is also a town for dolls. Visit the temple, Aprameya Swami. Very nice temple. So look at the idea of Prameya, measure. Aprameya, beyond measure. That's the beauty. That's the thought we are going to. So if you talk about contribution of science, you can't give it in a capsule. The whole Brahmanda, the idea of that, the idea of the Big Bang itself became. That's why we made a film called Shrishti Vijnana. When Suresh introduced us, he said we made 5 documentary films. One of the documentary films is called Creation, Shrishti Vijnana. I'll take one question on this and she'll show you a film also on this. All of you have questions in your mind. My question is, how many questions do you have? Can you number your questions in your mind? Can you hierarchically sequence them? Of all the, if you can, I know you can't, not possible, not you, I mean, we can't, all of us can't. If you can hierarchically sequence them, what is the question that comes on top, Sarvottam, that of all the questions that are in our churn, she said use the word manthan, in the manthan of our manas, which is the question that takes a top spot? Of all the probable questions, because Bharat is a land of questioning, because knowledge comes from questioning. That's how Jnana and Vijnana science, see, Jnana, knowledge, Vijnana sciences develop. We, the special, that the one goes deep in. Now, of all these questions, which is the primest of all the questions, of course, there's no word called primest in English language, so don't see. Just using to coin a term for us to understand the significance of what I'm trying to say. The most profound of questions, what is it? That can ever be asked by mankind. How we came to be. We meaning not individually, all of us alone, but this world, the Surya Malika, the solar system, the Mandakini, the galaxy, and Prapancha, the universe came to be? That is the most profound question that science can ever ask. Now the question is, having said this session is about Bharatiya contribution to science, has this question been asked by us, our scientists? Yes. And have they answered it? Yes. They have asked this question 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years back in Vedic times itself, and answered this question also beautifully. That is what we'll see over the next few minutes, and then we'll get down to subscience.
So actually, the point is today we are trying, if you look at modern science, what are the questions? Today we have gone to God particle. Now they're even going back into a goddess particle. So what we are trying to do is, from our understanding of the gross, we are now trying to go back to the infinitesimally small and trying to understand all the research on God particle or even this goddess particle is only to understand what happened soon after the Big Bang. So they accept that there was a Big Bang. Now it is also and it's a beautiful story that we also can show. Sometime if we get a chance again on how this Brahmanda Visfotak and our Om, the science of Om, what we call as Om and the Dhyana and the sound, which Indian civilization, it's a fundamental sound here, the Pranava, how this is in modern science now come to be accepted as the cosmic microwave background radiation, CMBR, which emanated at the time of the Big Bang. So it is the echo of the Big Bang. They have now come to accept it, though they don't publicize it too much, but the scientists there do accept this particular fact because we have interacted with some of the scientists during the preparation of this production of the documentary creation, and they have mentioned it in that. But you will never find it very explicitly written anywhere. So this echo, and so the Big Bang happened. And after the Big Bang, what happened to start to get matter to get formed? So that is what this study on God particle or the goddess particle now is all about. But our creation, if you look at it, our knowledge, Vedic knowledge about creation, Srishti Vijnana, the questions that have been asked go to what caused the Big Bang itself. And they've gone about to answer those kind of questions, not what happened after the Big Bang, but what caused the Big Bang
to happen. That is the beauty of it. So the difference is we have gone beyond the glass ceiling. So they are all talking at the stula level, the matter level, whereas we have gone and questioned it at the sukshma level, the subtle level, not the gross level. So we are coming from the sukshma to the stula, and we have had the capacity to go to it. That's the beauty of it.
And this whole thing has happened because our approach to science itself. So while, and we can list a whole number of other things in the field of, like we saw at the beginning itself, the Arabs saying from medicine to maths to astronomy. So how we have contributed to the idea of meridians in the world. So all of this, we can get into all of this in detail. But the fundamental thing is, what has been the approach of the civilization to knowledge, to understanding that reality? That is what has emanated as science. And one of the beautiful idea we will see is the idea of a triad, the mantra, yantra, tantra. Mantra, the science of sound, because right from Om is where you find everything emanates. So from the mantra, the sciences, to the yantra, the devices on which that science operates, which ranges all the way from the universe. And something that we can relate to is our own body. And the tantra, the techniques with which all these devices therefore work. So our very beautiful handling through this triad of mantra, yantra, tantra, all the way from Veda to practical, practices itself, that has defined our body of science. And if you go to it, you will find a very beautiful thing that they say. about scientists being called Ashvinav. Now, what is the idea of an Ashvinav? A scientist in Sanskrit he is defined as an Ashvinav, and that's how Vedic terminology for a scientist is. Ashvinav denotes balance. Ashwin is twins. Ashwin means two, twinning. So it is a twinning, and the twinning meaning there is a sense of balance, and that's why you will find Ashwini always denoted by a horse, because a horse has a very balanced trot. The trot of a horse is very balanced.
Equine.
Equine. Look at the word in English also for a horse.
Equine. Equestrian.
Equal. So from the balance.
See, dog is canine. Cat is feline. Like that.
Bovine for cow.
Bovine. Whereas horse is equine because equal. So it can balance itself very well.
And so what were these Ashwini or the scientists, what are they supposed to balance? And for that, we would like to play a very short film. And this is from the Ishavasya Upanishad itself. And we would like to leave you with that thought, and we will take questions because we can see that it is nearing the completion of an hour. So we will play that short film and then we'll be open for questions.
And now it's about twinning of science and spirituality. That is what it's all about. And we brought this out at the end of our 1 hour long film called Creation.
This is
Watch at your convenience later. Just play this bit. Whole of the universe is intertwining of the two.
You may ask if the ancient Rishi had realized, relished, and shared with us the knowledge of the process of creation in the form of the concept of divinities in the Veda, the Purana, in the scriptures and sculptures, then where is the need to do further scientific research and conduct expensive experiments to unravel the mysteries of the universe?
The answer to this question lies in the Ishavasya Upanishad, one of the primary, equally ancient explanatory texts of the Veda. The Ishavasya Upanishad had obviously thought of this question and had preemptively answered it many thousand years ago itself.
Andhantamah pravishanti ye vidyamupasate tato bhoja jivate tamo yavo vidyaya aggaratah vidyancha yastadvedo bhajagge saha avidyaya mrityuntirtva vidyaya mritamashnude andhantamah pravishanti ye sambhotimupasate tato bhoja jivate tamo javo sambhotyaggyaratah sambhotincha vinashancha yastadvedo bhajagge saha vinashena mrityuntirtva sambhotyamritamashnude.
We are advised by the text that the pursuit of the unmanifested reality, the spiritual sciences alone, or the pursuit of the manifested or the material sciences alone will lead us to further darkness and misunderstanding. This universe and the creation is a mix of both the manifested and the unmanifested, and a healthy mix of understanding of both will give rise to a simple answer that Dr. Penrose is looking for.
We had a path-breaking moment in science with Einstein's revelation of the relation between mass and energy. How mass and energy are interconvertible, and how the total mass and energy in the universe is a constant. With a combined understanding of creation from the material sciences perspective and the ancient spiritual expression of science, we can perhaps hope to reach the next path-breaking moment in mankind's pursuit of science, namely the unraveling of the relation between the manifested and the unmanifested, the relation between matter and consciousness, how the total of all matter and consciousness leads to the all-pervading Prakriti or nature the scientific divinity?
So this is available as a book. One second. So this is available as a book as well as a film for all those who want to watch later at your convenience. Before we end, just 1 or 2 slides.
Yeah. So to just summarize this, one, we have been a contributor to science in many ways. We have created that churn with the ideas and concepts. And today we are sustaining by being a very scientific nation as well, even today, and contributing people who are working in the way the West has taken our ancient sciences and given it back to the world in its new form. And we have adapted to that as well, and we are working with it. But at the same time, we cannot forget our original approach to science. And there is a whole lot of potential still. And we can be another big contributor when we try to look at both intertwined approach of both science and spirituality and try to understand the mind, the unmanifested aspects in nature. So this is something that is yet to come from this land, and definitely with institutes like Arsha Vidya and Swami Dayanand Saraswati's inculcation of the search into the subtle as well. I'm sure there'll be many more who will go forward to contribute to the Vijnana as from both perspectives.
Both Jnana and Vijnana.
So we will show you where you can find most of our all these short films. I will just share the screen for a minute. And so if you go to our website, Bharat Gyan, and here you will find our books, and here you will find mini books which you can read online. And here is where you will find our films from where we were playing. So it will take you to our YouTube and all our playlists, different playlists, and things like creation are there way below. If you scroll down, you'll find those playlists on creation, on understanding Shiva and all the sciences in it. The Amazing India, from which we played a few films for you. If you want to go for seeing the whole documentary itself on creation, you can go to our homepage on Bharat Gyan YouTube channel. And there you will also find our the channel for our documentaries. Yes, our documentary film channel, Bharat Gyan. You go in here, you will find the documentary films
on creation. That's
Shiva, Indian astronomy, and so on. So this is about, and if you go to our website, you can access our blog through our articles here. And for those of you who don't have time to read all of this, you can just go to our banners, and you will find simple banners that talk about various aspects of important days, important festivals, important facts, and so on. And you can always reach us on bharatgyan@gmail.com and follow us on our YouTube and Twitter accounts. So they're all here. So thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to share this beautiful contribution of our civilization with all of you. And any questions, we'll be happy to take. Not the question of how the world came to be.
Yeah, that's already there. That's answered in our film, 1 hour film. You can watch it. Shishti Vijnana.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hema Hari and Dr. Hari. I can only tell you that I haven't got up from this chair for the last 1 hour. Been completely transfixed, stuck to my chair, listening to this absolutely fabulous presentation, lovely videos, slides, and both of you all are so much into the subject. We know that we also realize that 1 hour is slightly short time to cover such a large topic like Bharatiya contribution to science. I guess by the way you all spoke about it, I suspect 6 hours would be also slightly less, is my sense, because of the kind of
lifetime is less.
Is absolutely the kind of contribution we have made as a country, as a civilization, as a culture, as a tradition, as right from our Vedas downwards, the kind of contribution we have made. I know you've tried your best to encapsulate it and done a fabulous job, but I guess it's a vast body of knowledge in that sense. But thank you for encapsulating it in 1 hour. We loved the fact that, I mean, like I started off by saying zero, and then of course zero is a very common knowledge. Then you spoke about infinity, how we went beyond the Big Bang theory, and how we are acknowledged by not only us across the world and through millennia as a civilization of knowledge and as a civilization steeped in wisdom. Thank you so much, Dr. Hari and Hema Hari. A lot of the questions were based on your YouTube channel, so I'm glad you clarified in the end. You showed us your web page and your YouTube channel, because a lot of people wanted to know where they can access your videos, your books, and all that. I think that will take care of most of the questions. And thank you so much for spending the time. It was really fascinating. And I would now request Swamiji, Swami Brahma Vidananda, to also express his thanks for the fascinating session. Swamiji.
I think it's a great effort that you're doing in terms of representing some of the practical aspects of the service, scientific aspects, which have been largely ignored for historical reasons, and the attitudes of some of our scholars also. So I think great work you are doing. All my prayers and wishes with you all. Continue this for maybe another 25 years at least. Thank you for being with us. And probably we'll call you all again. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Always happy to be part of your work. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, Hema and Hari. Thank you once again.
Thank you.